Hello everyone, this is Black Socrates, and today's video is about going beyond the red pill. Now, for those of you who don't know, the red pill is basically one of the fundamental keys of the manosphere, as it were. MGTWOW, you know what that means if you don't look it up, and a certain perspective and paradigm about looking at the world and how to maneuver within it. And I want to talk about the fact that for those of you who go through that process, you know, the encounter of the red pill, recognizing that society is not what you thought, this Disney-esque perspective about men and women in our relationships is not real, and that there's going to be more required of you in terms of maneuvering and navigating society and life because of all the lies you've been told. And for those of you who don't know, basically the red pill teaches us that we cannot depend on society and the idea that we can get a wife, happy life, happy wife, live happily ever after, and depend on these things. That society has basically orchestrated a situation where men are disposable, that they're exploited, that their labor is used for other people and to sustain society and a lot of institutions and mechanisms that really don't produce anything of value. So therefore, men have decided to run away from this, as it were. And that's what the red pill is about, understanding that the matrix is real, that this is the reality situation. If you look at the statistics, men are more likely to die at war, they're more likely to die in the workplace, they're more likely to commit suicide, they're more likely to be homeless. It's just terrible. More likely to be victims of violent crimes. It just goes on and on and on. And when you talk about these things, society has this contempt and this attitude that, why are you crying about? Everyone has it worse. And this is not a competition of who's more of a victim per se, but the reality is, if you're a guy, no one cares about your tears, no one cares about your fears, no one cares about your struggles. And that is what the red pill is about. And fundamentally, that you can't necessarily trust the quote-unquote depiction of women that is propelled through society, that they're angels, that they're innocent, that they're trustworthy. I don't think anyone's trustworthy, and that's just the reality. But what happens when you get that? What happens when you realize that, yeah, it's true, you know, my ex was lying to me, her body count was huge, she was plotting on me to attempt to use me to provide for her lifestyle, and that's the case for a lot of men. That if I do get married, I'm divorced, or she took half of my stuff, she has custody of the kids, I'm in child support, I'm in alimony, I'm in, you know, as Coach Greg Adams would say, you know, divorce grape. And that's just what happens. Now what? When you realize that, now what do you do? Now, this is partly what this channel is about. This channel is a movement to get past that, you know, to say, you know, once that happens, we need to pick up the ashes. We need to arise from the flames like a phoenix and begin charting that dedicated path forward towards doing more and doing something with our lives. And the reason I believe that's important is because life doesn't stop once you recognize the truth. Regardless of what the truth is, life doesn't stop. You adapt. That's what it means to be human, from my perspective, is to adapt. Now that we recognize this, if you have recognized this, we need to move forward. And what does that look like? What does that mean? You know, if you're a young man or if you're older, what does it mean to move forward and move past the red pill? Well, and again, this is entirely my perspective. What it means is that you need to start taking actionable steps towards crafting the kind of life that you want. Because, you know, prior to that, we were giving a certain paradigm, a certain way of looking at the world. And because we were given that, a lot of us are at a loss to know what would life be without that. If we're not going to get married, if we're not going to have, you know, relationships, because some of us are not going to do that, are going to either live the free agent lifestyle, go monk mode, or do whatever. So how do you live your life? What shall we then do? And I think this is where what I would call radical individuality and radical focus comes into play. That our focus should be primarily on ourselves. And it's not in this, contemptuous or hostile way. It's a powerful, hopeful, and motivating thing. It's that heroic journey when the hero has to go and learn their lessons to become the person they were meant to be. It's that journey of trials and tribulations that forges you into that masculine figure that can conquer anything. And to me, that's exciting. You become clay. Now you have an opportunity to mold yourself into what you will now become. There should be a vision for you. A vision of what would the perfect version of you look like. And now your goal is to take that outline and color it in. To give it those hues, give it those colors, give it those compositions, give it life. Now, as a general perspective, because this is going to be an ongoing discussion, I would say that the first step, like my prior podcasts or videos, is your mindset. It's understanding that since the world has lied to you, since the reality is not what you expected, you're going to have to think of the world differently. And that requires you to really come to embrace truth, facts, and logic. This is partly why I'm called Black Socrates, because I believe that, it's my phone. Philosophy is important because almost everything you encounter really boils down to philosophy. Like, I had a conversation with my friend earlier today when we were discussing a former college, classmate who decided to spend $500,000 on a house. And I was flabbergasted. I was thrown away because I believe that's a complete waste of money. And we'll get into that about real estate. But the long and short of it is it was a woman, she spent $500,000 in a home in Queens, single occupancy. So her child, because she's a single parent mother, and she wanted to give her child more space. I thought that there was nothing worse that she could have done, especially during this time of COVID. And I started explaining to my friend, my mutual friend who's a guy, why it's such a bad idea. That when you start doing what's called future value of money, and you take the interest rate and you take up the principal, how much money you have to pay over 30 years, it comes out to about, and plus property taxes and maintenance, it's like over $1 million she's going to sink into this property. And I told him that the money that she would spend if she put it in just an index fund and got the standard or historical 8% return on the market, it would have been about, I think, $2 million in returns. And if that's really for her son, she should probably give him a portfolio of $2 million. That would be worth a lot more than the dubious value of this house, because as far as the IRS is concerned, a house is worthless after 27 years. But whatever. And he told me that he spoke to her about this conversation we had. And she was saying that she admitted that it was a luxurious, expense. It's not an asset or investment. And that, this is what she was told. She was following the script of life. And she was speaking about how happiness is just different for different people. And he said that it really goes down to, a philosophical question. What do you think is good for yourself? What is a good life? And this is why philosophy is important. We start to go down to these fundamental questions. What is a good life? What should I be doing? And this is the hallmark of the great, pillars of philosophy: ethics, metaphysics, epistemology, and logic. If there is truth, if there is a reality, we should attempt to conform ourselves to it as much as possible. And if we begin to do that, I believe that you'll come to the same conclusions, certain key conclusions. You will definitely come to those conclusions. So, to give you a quick summary, your life should primarily consist of working on your health, because your health is precious, working on your finances because it gives you freedom, and working on your mindset through knowledge and experiences. These things will allow you to have the freedom to live any kind of life you want. And that should be the story of the red pill. That since the world is a lie, I will go forth and live my truth by crafting and creating a life that I want. And you can do that. That's the beauty of it. There's enough options, especially if you live in America, which has to still, regardless of what they tell you through the news. And this is why one of the things that I say about, you shouldn't watch news. Don't watch the news. The news is horrible. It destroys your psyche. It's a psychological warfare. There's so much concern and fear about things going bad. But the reality is we have a $20 trillion economy, that there's money everywhere and that you can get it. That there's free access and knowledge on the internet. That there's resources that were never available to the common man in the history of mankind that can now be accessed through the internet. And that should excite you. That even right now, like the fact that this channel exists and now I'm doing this, it's because of these things. I learned everything I learned about what I'm doing right now from the internet. And that's the beauty of this time and dispensation. To not necessarily look at it as a bad thing, but to look at it as a hopeful thing. That because, we've been lied to. That's bad. We can't necessarily trust our female counterparts. That's bad. But we have options, man. You can get your money up. You can fix your credit. There's ways to do that. You can get your investments up. There's ways to do that. We're experiencing a great transfer of wealth right now from the old guard, the baby boomers, to the millennials and Generation Z, and that should be exciting. To the jockeying of position and changing of who's who. You have a passport. You can travel the world and experience things. And not to mention that with just some shrewd investments or some preparation, you can live a quality of life abroad because of the relative, exchange rates that would defy comprehension over here stateside. And that's just an example. I'm not saying you should do that, but these are just examples. And it's exciting. And so I hope you take that mindset and take that perspective that it doesn't have to be this negative thing. So, because so many people get caught up in the red pill, in this negative feedback loop where they stay harking on how bad it is. They stay obsessed about what women are doing and how they're messed up and how they hurt you and how society is allowing this and how everything is all messed up. That's a horrible perspective. That eats at your soul. It eats at your will to live, in a sense, because it's negative. What about the positive things? What about the fact that, yes, society is like that, but you don't have to follow that. That you can meet people and you can build. You can create communities. You can find like-minded individuals and build. You can build your body through going to the gym and working out. You can learn some fashion and style or pick up a hobby and learn a new skill or trade just for fun. I love this concept of Epicureanism, which says that, the most important thing about life is pleasure. Now, this is not to say that, we should consume our lusts and become addicted to things. But this is to say that there is aesthetic and high pleasures in life that does require time and patience to consume or satiate, but they're worthwhile. And I think that's amazing. Finding beauty in art and finding beauty in music, finding beauty in traveling, finding beauty in engaging people who are worth engaging because their mindset and their character and their personality is beautiful. Like finding beauty, real beauty in this world, and it's there. And that's a story I want Red Pill to be. That it doesn't have to be about all the bad that's going on. It could be about finding solutions, because like I said before, the greatest ability of humans, and it's really manifested in men, is that adaptation, our ability to adapt. There's no place on this planet that mankind hasn't found a way to survive in, and that should be inspiring to you that this too shall pass. We'll find solutions and we'll make a way. I thank you for listening right now. Comment, subscribe, share. Have a great day. And remember, unexamined life is not worth living. Do the work. Take care.